NSFW, SX workers of Reddit, have you ever become emotionally attached to one of your clients, and what became of it? A serious answer. Since there's not many. I've definitely been attracted and started to get emotionally attached to clients before, but will always take a step back before I get in too deep. Part-time cam girl and escort, so I can get away with not going on for a week or skipping a date or two just to regroup and remind myself of the situation. I have also got past clients who are now friends, who I am very much so emotionally attached to. I was a traffic child SX worker from the age of 15 to about 18. Mostly serving male clients in the 30s to 50s range. It's hard to explain the mentality that goes into that work when you're that young. But I would connect emotionally fairly regularly because many of the men would be very affectionate and give me gifts, take me to the zoo or other fun places, etc. Now I can look back as an adult and understand it was all internalized trauma which made me latch onto anyone who was kind to me. As an adult I have went back to consensual SX work a few times and always had a great time. I've connected with a client who was also a SX worker, and we dated for a while. The mutual understanding and respect for each other made it easy to get along. But as I stepped away from the life she and I made an amicable break, I just couldn't keep up with the emotional labor attached to SX work anymore. And with that, a lot of the emotional labor she required. I'm a male gay for pay SX worker. I've never fell for any of my male clients. Never had a female client before, that is a unicorn, in this business. Although I never fell for any clients, I did have deep respect for some of them. I would genuinely enjoy seeing and catching up. When I got close enough to some of these clients, we would just hang out, watch TV and have deep conversation, maybe with their head in my lap. Easy 300-400 bucks tax free. One thing I realized is that men crave physical affection. I'm not talking about SX, but holding, hugging, etc. Some would tell me no one has ever held them before in their 30-60 years of life. When I started holding hugging clients after any SZUL activity, it boosted recurring clients by 50%. Most of my clients now are non-SZUL because of this. It feels amazing to be paid to connect with people on an intimate level. My ex-wife literally left me for one of those random stranger commenters on iGoneWild. Does that count? We were still married. He was the last in a string of cheating betrayals. But yeah. Several weeks later they were meeting in person. And they are over a year-long distance dating now. Suffice it to say, we are divorced now. So, hey, iGoneWild commenters, you actually have a chance. So keep trying. The best questions never get serious answers. This might get buried, but I met a client around my age a short while ago, and was intensely attracted to him. After the first meeting, I haven't asked him to pay me again. We just enjoy each other's company. He doesn't get jealous of my clients. He understands my need for space. So far things have gone well. Ask me again in another month though. A woman I have been good friends with for years found her husband at a strip club she was working at. She said that she was instantly attracted to him, and even more so when she noticed that he looked like he'd rather be at the dentist getting cavities filled than be there. He was forced because of his brother's bachelor party. They started talking. She bought him a few glasses of Diet Coke. They exchanged numbers. Got engaged 1 year later, literally from the day they met. And have been married and happy for 15 years next month. She always told herself that she'd never fall in love again. Ex was an abusive nightmare, and boom. Love at first sight, according to them. I don't believe in that. She glows from happiness when he's near and it's beautiful. Call girl here. I have a beautiful and meaningful relationship with an ex-client. We regularly check up on each other and I genuinely love him like one of my own. He's a whole lot older than me, but he's super wise and genuinely cares for me. He still wants to my brains out, but he also shares some pretty amazing secrets. My sister was an escort and married one of her clients. They have been together about 8 years. Friend of a former sex worker. She had severe emotional attachment issues and that's what led her to sex work in the first place. She got emotionally attached to many clients, none of whom even treated her well. She says that if I hadn't made her cut contact with them and stay with me while she got help, she probably would have married one of them and pumped out babies for an abusive husband. I'm not going to get into whether sex work is right or wrong. It's important to realize though that the way it is now, it draws in very vulnerable people with deep-seated issues. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but it does appeal to people who confuse physical intimacy for emotional intimacy. Former sex worker. No. Never. My friend was a massage therapist who ended up being a man. Most of his clients were old married men who he would just jerk off at the end of the massage. But there were occasionally younger men and women who he would do oral on, and he always seemed to develop feelings for those clients. Then he would become sad because the customers were looking for nothing more than physical for cash. My partner is a sex worker, but we met through conventional means. Of her co-workers, one is married to a former client, another is dating a former client. But those are very much the exceptions. They do feel an emotional attachment to certain clients though. That's a lot of the job. Plenty of Johns are widowers, or in unhappy marriages, or have other issues. They're looking for companionship and affection as much as sex. But that doesn't mean the workers want more than a professional relationship. Former sex worker. I became completely infatuated with this man who would come into the strip club I worked at. I actually never let him pay me because being around him never felt like work. He would buy me gifts though and offered to pay my tuition. I said no. He was the first person to ever give me an orgasm and was the only person I met at that club that I did anything more than dance with. We texted each other regularly and were basically just having an affair. I was 18-21 at the time. He was 48-51. Eventually I quit my job, threw my cell phone in the garbage while on vacation and ghosted him. I remember him pretty fondly and think about him sometimes even though he was pretty shady. I haven't spoken to him in years. But I ran into his daughter at a networking event a few months ago. The industry we work in is a fairly small and gossipy community and I really hope I don't have to awkwardly work with her in the future. Are serious answers allowed? I briefly dipped my toes into the whole sugar baby thing and ended up falling in love with my sugar daddy who I'm still with. Wasn't exactly a full-blown sex worker but did have one other sugar daddy prior to that and a little dabble in panty selling. More of a rebellious phase than a money thing. Anyways, I stopped accepting money a couple months in. Prior to that, I got $600 per date and started dating as a normal couple. Still going strong a year and a half later and even starting to talk marriage and kids. Won't tell the kids how we met. Wasn't exactly a full-blown sex worker. Anyways, I stopped accepting money a couple months in. Prior to that, methinks the OP will live to wish he had put the serious tag on this one. Not a sex worker. I sure hope not. I don't think my wife would like that very much. Not a sex worker but I've heard of sex and the concept of getting paid for work. I used to be a $5,000 a night escort. But I fell madly in love with a socially awkward guy who loves to smoke weed and play video games and now I couldn't be happier. Now instead of going out I stay in and feed my boyfriend pizza rolls while we watch anime together. I'm the luckiest girl in the world. I used to be a $5,000 a night escort. But I fell madly in love with a socially awkward guy who loves to smoke weed and play video games and now I couldn't be happier. Now instead of going out I stay in and feed my boyfriend pizza rolls while we watch anime together. I'm the luckiest girl in the world. This happens all the time. Asterisk. I've met all of my wives this way, and funny enough, divorced them all because all of them ended up unable to appreciate Rick and Morty as much as me. Not a sex worker but I've got a friend who bowled a 300 the other day. He was really pumped and I feel really happy for him. I used to be a sugar baby. I met this one man who was going through a very rough divorce. He really was just lonely and upset at how his life was turning out. We never had an arrangement. Nothing sexual ever happened between us, but our personalities just clicked. We became very good friends. Have been for years now. Absolutely no transactions between us. We just meet for drinks once in a while. We went to the state fair together last year. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of stories with happy endings. Not a sex worker. But I did grow weirdly attached to a jizz sock as a teenager. Luckily the doctor was able to remove it. Not a sex worker and also never had sex. Not a sex worker. But I have had actual conversations with strippers while they were working. First one. I had a couple dances and we got to chatting. Turns out we grew up like 2 roads over from each other. Had some drinks, chatted for a while. Really nice girl. Second one. Had a couple of dances. Song ends and we just started talking. We had the same taste in books and some other mutual interests. Talked for about an hour and a half. Then went on my merry way. Real pros. Gave you just enough to connect and you left thinking you had something going. Well, it all started innocently enough. We'd meet up about once a week for fairly vanilla stuff. But there was something about him. He walked a little funny. And slurred his words sometimes. But he really got me. It wasn't until we'd been seeing each other for about a year that I realized his slur came from always chewing beans. Once I saw that, I realized he was a giant crustacean from the Paleolithic era. I knew I should have charged him more than $3.50. Beans. Not here. You. Yes. You. The one who was starting to create a comment but decided to read a couple replies first. See how your comment starts with not a sex worker? Do the thread a favor. Delete it. Semicolon. Thank you. Not the worker. But I have long-term providers. Usually. You can just break it off with text. And I tried that with one girl. Apparently. She believed a breakup requires some kind of democratic vote. I blocked her after a while. But she showed up to a bar that I often take girls to. Long story short. There is a bar in Hollywood that I can't go any place near anymore. Despite their good drinks. Also. If you drive a green Acura and found scratches in it. My bad dude. IDKY she thought that was my car. Overall worth it though. She was fun. And I don't mind a little crazy. I see this as a top Reddit post by 2 hours. With no real answers. Not the worker but the client. My girlfriend is a dominatrix and we met when I booked her for a session. We are currently dating and she still does her work, which is pretty lucrative. I don't have a problem with it. The nice thing is now I found a partner that shares the same kink, which was kind of hard to find. For your information, we are both switches, so we have a lot of fun and the relationship is not lopsided. Current SW. Yes, I have been emotionally attached but not in love. We had a good arrangement that worked for the both of us really well for a couple of years. Then we just drifted apart after a while. As a lot of relationships like that do, I assume. Nobody is a sex worker in this thread apparently. Your mother's not here yet. Trebuk. Not a sex worker. But I once met this girl online. She had a beautiful voice and I felt instantly attracted to her. We met through a friend. I hosted my own TeamSpeak server at the time and he would frequently use it with whoever he was gaming with. She was very impressed with the fact that I ran the server for some reason and we started talking. After a few months of hanging out online, I finally got up the courage to ask her out. Turned out that she lived about 7 hours away. So I drove out there and picked her up for a concert. I got there and instantly there were sparks. She was turned on by my car as well, and as a car guy that was a big plus for me. We kept visiting each other and eventually she moved in with me. I became emotionally attached to her and we eventually got married. But she isn't a sex worker. So, this is just a regular online friend turning girlfriend. Till. Not many sex workers on Reddit. Surprising considering the overwhelming demand around here lol. Not a sex worker. But it is a commonly known fact that the Roman legionary cohort is superior to the Greek phalanx. While the phalanx may be stronger as a unit, in a huge battle gaps in it allow the opponent ability to attack it from the sides. Thanks to this Rome conquered Greece. Not a sex worker and I don't have clients. But it's a really nice day in London. Little bit if rain earlier on. But damn it if the cute sundresses aren't out in full effect. Man, I love the sundresses. Women are beautiful. Life is great. Not a sex worker but I had a really good shawarma the other day. The dump I had afterwards was quite hefty and I felt like a new man.